Hello and welcome to College Opening Lines. This is Ramon Scott, and I've got the lines for this upcoming week's games just breaking right now from the Circa in Las Vegas. We'll also have representation from offshore. We'll look at lines from Bovada and from major U.S. book DraftKings. We'll compare the three, take a look at these opening line moves that are coming out right now, and these are the moves directly from Circa Sports in Las Vegas, which claims to take the highest limits on opening college football lines in the world when they open them at 2 p.m. Eastern and 11 a.m. Pacific. So here we go. I'm seeing them for the first time, and we'll start on Tuesday, 101, 102. New Mexico State at Louisiana Tech. Louisiana Tech was a 2.5 point favorite at DraftKings. Circa has opened the game, Louisiana Tech -2. The total opened 46.5 and has been bet up to 48.5. New Mexico State and Louisiana Tech will be at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 Pacific. Liberty at Western Kentucky. DraftKings had this one this week. Liberty -2.5. Circa has opened this one. Liberty -3. It has since been bet up to Liberty -3.5. The total opened 65.5 and stood no chance. It is now 59.5. 6 point move on the total under here. West Liberty and Western Kentucky on Tuesday. That game 7:30 Eastern, 4:30 Pacific. Move to Wednesday now.
Final.
Jacksonville State and Florida International. Jacksonville State was a 7 point favorite at DraftKings, but Circa opened the game Jacksonville State 8, and that's where it remains. They opened the total 41.5. It's been bet up 4 points to 45.5. Jacksonville State and Florida International. UTEP at Sam Houston. DraftKings had this one too. They've since pulled it off the board. Circa opened the game 1, and it was bet up to -3 for Sam Houston. Sam opened 1, now 3. Bovada has just opened this game up at 3.5 for Sam Houston. Of course, Sam Houston is 0-7 right now. UTEP not having a good season either, 2-7. The total opened 34.5, and it has been bet up to 36. All right, Thursday now with Syracuse and Virginia Tech. DraftKings opened this game Virginia Tech -1. They are now Virginia Tech -3. Circa opened this game Virginia Tech -3. They also opened the total 44.5. It's been bet up here to 46.5. Syracuse and Virginia Tech is now at 7:30 Eastern, 4:30 Pacific. Georgia State and Georgia Southern. DraftKings opened this game Georgia Southern -3, and it moved to -2. Circa opened the game -2. It's moved to -3. Bovada just opened the game -2. Right now, consensus between would be 2.5 or 3 here for Georgia Southern. Circa opened the game total 62.5. It is now 59.5. 3 point move to the under here, Georgia State and Georgia Southern. This game is now at 7:30 Eastern, 4:30 Pacific. Florida Atlantic at Charlotte. DraftKings opened the game 6.5. It was bet down to 6. Circa opened the game Florida Atlantic 5, and it's been bet up to 6. The total opened here 43.5. It is now 41.5. Florida and Atlantic and Charlotte is now at 7:30 Eastern, 4:30 Pacific. All right, get ready to move to the Saturday games now. And we're in rotation order here. Top of the board, 121, 122. Michigan State and Minnesota. DraftKings opened this game 7.5. It moved to 7, now back to 7.5. Circa opened Minnesota -8. They're now -7 at Circa. The total opened 41.5, and it's still 41.5. Michigan State and Minnesota is now at 3:30 Eastern, 12:30 Pacific. Massachusetts and Army. Circa opened this game Army -6. There's now Army -7. The total opened 43.5. It's now 49.5. 6-point move to the over here, Massachusetts and Army. And the game is now moved even further as I speak. Army is now an 8.5-point favorite against UMass. Tennessee and Kentucky. Circa opened this game Tennessee -5. It's been sent down to -4. Bovada currently has the game -3. DraftKings has the game -3.5. No matter the case, it looks like the move here is on Kentucky at this point. Total open 51.5. It is now 54. Tennessee and Kentucky is now at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. Connecticut and Boston College. Circa opened the game Boston College 11. It's now 12. Total opened 52.5, and that's where it remains. Florida State and Wake Forest. DraftKings opened this game 21. It moved to 20.5. Circa opened the game 21. It moved to 20. Bovada has it at 20. Total opened 55.5. It is now 53.5. Florida State and Wake Forest. Virginia at Miami. Miami opened -15. They're now -18. Total opened Virginia 52.5. It has been bet down to 50. Duke and Louisville. Louisville opened 4 at Circa. It opened 4.5 at DraftKings. That's where the numbers still are at those respective books. Circa opened the game 51.5 on the total. It is now down to 47. Duke and Louisville. West Virginia at Central Florida. DraftKings opened the game 6.5. Circa opened the game 6. It's pretty much 6.5 at those two sites. Bovada has it at 6. Total opened 57.5. It is now 60. West Virginia and Central Florida. Arkansas State and UL Monroe. Circa opened this game 4. It is now a pick'em at Circa. DraftKings currently has Monroe -2. So let me cover that again. Monroe was -4 on the open. It's now pick'em at Circa. DraftKings has it at -2 currently for Monroe. Monroe's a favorite, probably about by 1 point. The total opened 55.5. It is now 56.5. Arkansas State and Monroe is now at 5 Eastern, 2 Pacific. North Carolina at Georgia Tech. DraftKings opened the game 11.5. They're still 11. Circa opened the game 14. It's now 12 at Circa. Bovada has it at 12 as well. Total opened 61.5. It is now 64.5. North Carolina State, the big favorite there, off that game off that game, yeah. Clemson and North Carolina State. DraftKings opened the game 10.5. It went all the way down to 8.5. It's been since back up to 9.5. Circa opened the game at 9, and they're now at 11. And Bovada has the game 10.5. So right now, Clemson here, probably a 10.5-point favorite. The total at Circa opened 43.5. It is now 43. Clemson and NC State. Southern Miss and App State. Circa opened the game. App State 19. It's been bet down to 18. Total open 52.5. It's been bet up to 55. Southern Miss and App State is now at 3:30 Eastern, 12:30 Pacific. Marshall and Coastal Carolina. Circa opened the game Marshall -1. They are now Marshall -4.5. 3.5 point move there on Marshall. Total here, Marshall and Coastal open 51.5. It is now 49.5. Marshall and Coastal Carolina, time change to 6 Eastern, 3 Pacific. Old Dominion and James Madison. Circa opened Madison -19. It's now Madison -18. Total opened 44.5. It has been bet up to 49. 4.5 point move to the over, Old Dominion and Madison. This game is now at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 Pacific, ODU and JMU. Western Michigan and Eastern Michigan. This one opened -1 for Eastern Michigan at DraftKings. It's now a pick'em there. Circa opened Eastern Michigan -2. It's now Eastern Michigan a pick. It's now Western Michigan -2. Circa opened the total 45.5. It is now 44.5. Western Michigan, Eastern Michigan, 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 Pacific. Miami of Ohio at Ohio. Ohio opened a 6-point favorite, and it's still 6 at Circa. The total opened 42.5. It is now 40.5. 2-point move to the under here. Miami of Ohio and Ohio, which is now at 3:30 Eastern, 12:30 Pacific. Oklahoma and Kansas. DraftKings opened this one at 10. It was bet up to 10.5. Bovada opened 10.5. It's still 10.5. Circa opened 10. It's still 10 there for Oklahoma on the road here at Kansas. Total opened 68.5 at Circa. It's been bet down to 66. Oklahoma and Kansas.
Final.
Indiana at Penn State. DraftKings opened this game Penn State -29.5, where it's since been bet up to 30.5. Circa opened the game 31. So did Bovada. It's still 31 there. Total opened 43.5 for Indiana and Penn State. It's now 44.5. Purdue at Nebraska. DraftKings opened this one Nebraska -4. It's now Nebraska -3 at DraftKings. Bovada opened the game up -3. Circa opened the game up Nebraska -1, and it's been bet up to Nebraska -3. Circa opened the total 43.5. It's been bet down 1.5 to 42. Purdue and Nebraska is now at 3:30 Eastern and 12:30 Pacific. Maryland and Northwestern. DraftKings opened Maryland 13. Bovada opened them 13. Circa opened them 13. They're still 13 everywhere. Total opened 51.5. It has been bet down to 49.5. Maryland and Northwestern. Air Force and Colorado State. DraftKings opened Air Force 9 on the road. They're now 10 on the road. Circa opened the game 10. It's now Air Force 11 at Circa. Bovada still open at 9.5, where it's still 9.5. Feels like it's moving up, though, no matter how you slice it at this point. In fact, I just see now Circa clicking up one notch to 11.5 right this moment. Total open 51.5 and is now down to 50.5. Air Force and Colorado State, 7 Eastern, 4 Pacific. Wyoming and Boise. DraftKings opened this game up Boise -4.5, or it was bet up to -5. Circa opened the game 6. It was bet down to -4. Bovada currently is at -6. So we have one book with a 4, one book with a 5, one book with a 6. Let's call it 5 right now where they have it at DraftKings, but it does look like there's two Boise here a little bit. Boise 3-4 at home, Wyoming 5-2 on the road. Total open 47.5. It is now 49.5. 2-point move to the over. Wyoming and Boise 5:30 Eastern, 2:30 Pacific. Oregon and Utah. DraftKings opened Oregon -3. They were bet up to -4. Circa opened the game 6. It was bet down to -5.5. Bovada opened the game 6. It was bet down to 5. Well, so far right now, just taking a survey of it, you got to think that it's probably Oregon 5. Total opened 47.5, and it was bet up here to 50. And the news came out. It looks like Cam Rising will not be playing this season. Saw that within the last 12, 18 hours or so. I think that came across, right? Oregon and Utah is now at 3:30 Eastern, 12:30 Pacific. UNLV and Fresno. DraftKings opened Fresno 7. It was bet down to 6, but now DraftKings is at 7.5. Circa opened the game 9. It was bet down to 8. So we see a Fresno 8, a Fresno 7.5. Let's just call it 7.5. Total open 57.5. It has moved down to 56.5. UNLV and Fresno State, 10:30 Eastern, 7:30 Pacific. USC at Cal. USC opened a 9-point favorite at DraftKings. They were bet up to 9.5. Circa opened at 10. It's still 10. Bovada opened at 9. It's been bet up to 10. So call it 10. USC on the road at Cal. Total open 67.5. It's still 67.5. USC and Cal. UNC is now at 4 Eastern, 1 Pacific. Washington State at Arizona State. DraftKings opened them Washington State -7. It had been bet down to -6.5. Circa opened at Washington State 5, and it was bet up to 6. Bovada has it 6.5, so probably looking at about a 6.5 here with Washington State on the road at Arizona State. Total open 50.5. It's been bet up to 51. Washington State and Arizona State's now at 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific. Colorado at UCLA. Circa opened at 15, and it was bet up to 17. That's where DraftKings opened it. Total opened 71.5. It's been bet down here to 65, Colorado and UCLA. Time change here, 7:30 Eastern, 4:30 Pacific. Oregon State at Arizona. DraftKings opened this one at Oregon State -5 on the road. It was bet down to -4. Bovada opened at 3.5. It's staying 3.5. Circa actually opened Oregon State -2, and it was bet up to -4.5. I'd just call it 4 right now. You have Bovada 3.5. You have DraftKings at 4. You got Circa at 4.5. Call it Oregon State here, 4 on the road. Total open 58.5. It is now 56.5. Oregon State and Arizona. 10:30 Eastern, 7:30 Pacific. New Mexico at Nevada. Circa opened Nevada -2. It's now a pick'em. Circa opened this total, one of the biggest moves right here on the totals. Opened 45.5. New Mexico at Nevada. It is now 52. 6.5-point move to the over. New Mexico and Nevada. Time change, 10:30 Eastern, 7:30 Pacific. Washington at Stanford. Washington opened a 24-point favorite at Circa. It's now 26. That's where DraftKings opened it. Total opened 61.5 at Circa, and it was bet down to 59. Washington State and Stanford, 7 Eastern, 4 Pacific. Well, Georgia and Florida are going to get together and do a little drinking. And this one opened 15.5 at DraftKings. It was moved down to 14.5. Circa opened the game Georgia minus 13 and is moved to 14. Probably can call it 14.5 here, but that's pretty, key numbers to a certain extent. Call it 14, 14.5 for Georgia. Total here at the world's biggest cocktail party opened 44.5. Bet up to 47.5. Of course, we're in Jacksonville for this one, as always. Pittsburgh at Notre Dame. DraftKings opened Notre Dame 18.5. It was bet down to 17.5. Circa opened the game Notre Dame 19. It's been bet down to 17. The move's on Pittsburgh here. Total open 42.5. Stiff move to the over here at a 46. 3.5 point move to the over Pittsburgh and Notre Dame. Memphis and North Texas. DraftKings opened this game 7. It went down to 6.5, but now it's up to 7.5. It's 7.5 everywhere. Circa opened Memphis 7. It's now 7.5. Bovada opened at 7.5. Still 7.5. Total opened 69.5. It's now 68. Memphis and North Texas. Time change 3 Eastern, noon Pacific. Iowa State and Baylor. Circa opened the game 3. It was bet down to 1.5. DraftKings had opened at 1.5. It moved to 2. Bovada has it at 1.5. It opened 1.5 there. Call it 1.5 for Baylor. Total opened 45.5. It is now 47.5. Iowa State and Baylor. Houston and Kansas State. Kansas State opened 17.5 at DraftKings. It's now down to 17. Circa opened the game 14 for Kansas State. It's now up to 16 there, so call it 16.5, 17 here. Total open 58.5. It is now 61.5. Houston and Kansas State, time change, noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. Troy and Texas State. Troy opened 4 at DraftKings. They were bet up to 5. That's where it stayed. Circa opened the game 6. It was bet down to 5. Bovada currently has it at 5.5. I think we can call it 5.5 here for Troy on the road at Kansas State. Total open 56.5. It's down to 51.5. Troy and Texas State is now at 7 Eastern, 4 Pacific. Ohio State at Wisconsin. Ohio State opened a 14-point favorite everywhere. It's still a 14-point favorite everywhere. This line has not changed. Ohio State, the Bucks, 14 at Wisconsin. Total opened 45.5. It was bet down 2 points to 43.5. Ohio State and Wisconsin is now at 7:30 Eastern, 4:30 Pacific. That sounds like that Big Ten night game of the day. Night game of the night. BYU and Texas. Circa opened this game 16.5. It was bet up to 18.5. Bovada opened at 18.5. DraftKings opened at 19.5, and it's still 19.5 for Texas at home against BYU. Total opened 51.5. It was bet up to 52. BYU and Texas. Mississippi State and Auburn. Circa opened the game 4. It was bet up to 6. DraftKings opened at 6. Bovada opened at 6. It's still 6. Total open 38.5. Here's a move to the over at a 43. 4.5 point move here to the over. Mississippi State and Auburn. Vanderbilt and Ole Miss. This game opened 25 at DraftKings. It opened 25 at Circa. And it opened 25.5 at DraftKings. It's 25. It's 25.5 no matter where you look right now. Not a big deal. Vanderbilt in Mississippi. Total opened 61.5. It was bet up to 64.5. Vanderbilt in Mississippi, 7:30 Eastern, 4:30 Pacific. South Carolina at Texas A&M. Texas A&M opened a 13-point favorite at DraftKings. It was bet up to 13.5. It opened 14 at Circa. That's where it stays, 14. Bovada's at 13.5. Call it 13.5, 14 here. A&M. Total opened 51.5. It was bet up to 54.5. And South Carolina and Texas A&M, that total has there is a time change on that game here to, let me take a look here. Whoop! Drop my pen. Switch. We're switching gears here. Timeout. What has me mad is my red zone has cut off. I mean, my red zone cut off, and I'm trying to set it. I want to read you these lines, but I got to keep the red zone in the back of my eyes here. So just time out. We're going to be back in just a moment with more opening lines. Here we go. We were on 203, 204. I got to look the other way so I can keep the pro football. A little bit selfish here. All right, here we go, you guys. Thank you. Not that I'm trying to. No, there was a hello, Ron. Nice to see you. Hey, there's a podcast about multitasking. I'm listening to it. All right, Cincinnati and Oklahoma State here. Oklahoma State opened 7.5 at DraftKings, and it was bet up to 8 currently for Oklahoma State. Circa opened the game 7. It's now 8. 8.5 actually now at Circa. Total opened here, Cincinnati 54.5. It's now still 54. Cincinnati and Oklahoma State is at 8 Eastern and 5 Pacific. UL Lafayette, Louisiana against South Alabama. DraftKings opened this game 8.5 for South Alabama. It moved to 9.5 for South Alabama. Circa opened the game 9 at South Alabama. It's now 10 for South Alabama. Total here opened 48.5. It is now 52. 3.5 point move to the over here, Lafayette, Louisiana at South Alabama. And note the time change here, 5 Eastern and 2 Pacific. Tulane at Rice. Tulane opened 10.5 at DraftKings. That's where it remains. It opened 10.5 at Circa at Bovada. That's where it remains, but not at Circa, where they opened the game Tulane minus 11, and it's been bet up to minus 12. Final. All right. I'm all set. All my TVs are right where they need to be to continue this charade. Anyways, Tulane now minus 12. Total 54.5, and it's still 54.5. Tulane and Rice. Note the time change here, 4 Eastern, 1 Pacific. Tulsa and SMU. SMU opened 17 at Circa. It's since gone up to 20 for SMU at Circa. DraftKings opened at 17. It's now 18.5. Bovada has it 19.5. It looks like the move is on SMU. Discounts at some places could go up to 20. That's where Circa already is. A total open 57.5. That's where it stays. Tulsa and SMU. Note the time change, noon Pacific, noon Eastern, 9 Pacific. East Carolina and Texas San Antonio. Texas San Antonio opened 18 at Circa. They opened 17.5 at DraftKings. That's where it is still, 17.5, 18. Total open 46.5. It's now 45.5. And finally, it's San Jose State at Hawaii. This one's been moved to 9. Bailout special here, midnight Eastern, 9 Pacific from the island. Get a live stream for that game. This one opened 10 at Circa. It's been bet down to 8. San Jose State, 8-point favorite on the road. It's 9 at DraftKings. Total open 64.5. It's been bet down to 61.5. All right, that's a look at the opening line. Let's go back to the top of the rotation real quick here, and then I'll get you out of here. But hopefully you had your pens, pencils, and scorecards ready to take down all those lines. Now, I'm going to give the once over. There might be a little bit of dead air here as I look over the lines, but I'm not going to update you unless there was a significant move since we've just went over it, which is significant in itself since we just started 30 minutes ago. So anytime if I see something that maybe is over a 1 point, over a half point move, I'll recite it again. And we'll start right at the top again with 101, 102. New Mexico State and Louisiana Tech. We reported the total at 46.5, moved to 48.5. It has since moved 2.5 points again to the over to 51. New Mexico State and Louisiana Tech. Liberty and Western Kentucky. We reported the move on the total from 65.5 to 59.5. It's since been bet back up to 61. Jacksonville State and Florida International. We reported that the total was bet from 41.5 to 45.5. It's now back down to 44. Syracuse and Virginia Tech, we reported Virginia Tech open 1.5 up to 3. It's now Virginia Tech 3.5. I'll report a half-point move there on a 3. Georgia State and Georgia Southern, we reported the total open 62.5, bet down to 59.5. It's back up to the opener. A little bit of market manipulation here, 62.5. All right, I'm through the weekday games now. I'm looking at the Saturday board, and DraftKings is starting to come out with some of their totals. So maybe we'll also get a little bit of movement here with DraftKings now opening their totals right now on, looks like, major games right now, maybe Power 5 games, it looks like. In fact, Michigan State, Minnesota open 41.5 at Circa. It's open 41 at DK. Massachusetts and Army, we were talking about Army open 6 up to 8.5. It's now 9.5 at DraftKings. Army, pretty strong move here. At least 2.5, if not 3.5 points to Army today. And the total settling at 48 at DraftKings. It was as high as 49.5, open 43.5, up to 49.5, back down to 48, Massachusetts and Army. Tennessee and Kentucky, total open 51.5, went as high as 54, back down now to 52 or 52.5 at DK. The line, which opened 5 and moved down to 3.5, is settling now at 3.5 or even 4 at Bovada. So line coming back here a little bit on Tennessee. West Virginia and Central Florida. No, everything's good there. Total 59 opener here at DraftKings. North Carolina and Georgia Tech, we talked about the total open 61.5 down to 64.5. It's now down to 63. Backing up one here, 137, 138, Arkansas State and Monroe. We reported the move from 55.5 to 56.5 on the total. It's now up to 58, Arkansas State and Monroe. Clemson is back up to as high as a 10-point favorite at Circa now against NC State. Marshall and Coastal went from Marshall 1 to 4.5. It looks like now Marshall is settling at 3.5. James Madison and Old Dominion, we reported the move from 19 to 18 for Madison. DraftKings now has Madison minus 16.5, although Circa still is at minus 18. Ohio, a 6.5-point favorite at home against Miami of Ohio at DraftKings, is a half a point higher than Circa. Down here now, I'm at 155, 156. Might be all clear here on some of this here. And I'll get you out of here. I want to get back to the NFL games. Appreciate you checking in with college opening lines here. Reporting to you lines from the Circa, from DraftKings, from Bovada. Opening moves here for this week's action, the week of October 24th through 28th. Okay, I think I'm going to leave it at that. UNLV and Fresno State, 9 at Circa, 8 at DraftKings. All right, I think that's going to do it. Not seeing a whole bunch more movement here. There will be movement, but certainly in the other shows, unless I'm just reading it incorrectly, we've seen a little more movement. I'm going to give it one more run through. All right, I can't get into it. I'm just not seeing enough action here. Vanderbilt, maybe the total here in the Vandy game moved down here to 63.5. That's a point less than that original 3-point move. Auburn is down to 5.5 against Mississippi State. It's off the 6 there. All right, I think I'm satisfied. Thanks everybody for joining me for college opening lines. Make sure to tune in with me every day here on the Tony's Picks YouTube channel at 9 a.m. Eastern, 6 a.m. Pacific for the morning steam. I talk about the sports betting card every day with you, the chat. We go try to get the picks together and go over all the major games for that day. So please join me here on the Tony's Picks YouTube channel, the 40,000 subscriber powerhouse. Like and subscribe. Like this video, subscribe to our channel. Free picks every day here on the Tony's Picks YouTube channel. That's what we do here, is give out free sports picks. All right, for Tony'sPicks.com, this has been Ramon Scott.